All right, good morning, everyone. We're live. Sorry if there's a little background noise. I'm trying to kill two birds with one stone. I got surgery on Monday, so I'm using the ice compressor on my shoulder. So we'll see how that works out. But we got Jeremy Taggart and Sarah Bloom returning. So morning.
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 Yeah, so Jeremy is in Pittsburgh. Sarah was in Pittsburgh, and now she's in Detroit. And we're going to kind of discuss today about dealing maybe expectations of new clients, new investors, and kind of how do you navigate that. So, Jeremy, any thoughts on that? Because do you deal with a lot of new clients or new investors, I would say.
Yeah, quite a few new investor clients for sure.
And what has been maybe the biggest, I guess, compared to, I guess, primary home purchasers and new investors? Like, what is the biggest challenges you face?
So I like with investors the fact that it's a lot less emotions, at least from the identifying and purchasing property standpoint. But you still do have some emotions with the newer clients just because there's the unknown factor. If it's their first one, they're second guessing themselves on a lot of things just to get used. They're not used to it. So you kind of have to hold their hand a little bit more from the agent standpoint. And there's varying degrees too. Like some people are just naturally just, I'm just going to do it and not really think about it. So you will see some borderline reckless newer clients, which obviously we rein them in a bit to make sure they're not making any mistakes. But then you have the opposite that are kind of the over analyzing, second guessing everything type of deal. So I think it's what we try to do on the agent side with newer clients is just set expectations, let them know what's realistic, make sure they realize that we have their back. We're not going to let them get into something that's going to blow up and completely throw them off to be able to build the portfolio going forward. So I think it's just comforting them from that standpoint, eliminating as much unknown as we can at the beginning so that they feel more confident and have the information that they need to know to jump into real estate investing. And then it's just kind of managing their emotional roller coaster sometimes with a lot of people maybe get a little bit nervous when they're say get a property under contract. They want to maybe panic a little bit. You learn a lot on the psychological side of things being an agent with newer clients, but yeah, it's just kind of helping them navigate that so they're comfortable moving forward. And then usually after a person buys one, then they're kind of like, all right, I got this. It's not as bad as maybe I thought it was. I feel confident going forward. And then it's a little more smooth sailing after that. So those are kind of just some things to navigate on the front end, I guess, with the brand new clients.
What's your thoughts, Sarah? Kind of the same feelings, or you were a little bit newer, right? You kind of were an investor first with Jeremy folks, right? And then now you're in Detroit, um, doing property management and having to probably deal with a lot of new out of state investors and whatnot, right? So, what's
Yeah.
your kind of take on or challenges you face?
Well, first of all, Jeremy helped me find my first property. So, and I think like what he said was true, helping a lot with that and understanding, um, making sure that you feel confident. And, I mean, like he said, people can be, once you get under contract, people kind of can freak out sometimes. But I think once they come to us, like after they bought the property, then they come to us, it can be challenging too because some people think that they're immediately just going to be making all of this money. And obviously, we don't know the conversations that were had with the agent. And honestly, I haven't met many agents like Jeremy, and that has been as helpful. Like, he was really helpful with me. And, not everyone has this experience that he has. They might have like one or two properties as an investor like agent, but so they might help them underwrite the deal, and maybe they didn't underwrite it properly, or their expectations are that they're going to be making all this money immediately, and that's not the case in a lot of times. And especially with like value add, if we have to add value, it could take time to stabilize, the asset. And I think that is a common thing. And then people not being prepared to spend the money that's needed, that's a huge thing as well. And especially with new investors, any little thing is like changing a toilet. It's like, oh my gosh, but those are small things that come with property ownership, whether you're an investor or just owning your first home.
That is great examples. Yes, I think I see that a lot with new investors, and their expectations are kind of very unrealistic. So, like for Jeremy, what do you think is maybe the most common unrealistic thing that new investors, when they approach it, that they kind of almost feel like they want guaranteed, in the sense that it's like, I want this much cash flow per door, or maybe what is the biggest common unrealistic goal they're looking for?
I think a lot of newer investors think that it's just mailbox money. The hard part is buying the property. Once it closes, I'm just going to sit back and collect checks. But
Mm.
especially like Sarah said, in the first year or two, that's not the case. There's always something in the first year or two that there's a stabilization period. So you're going to find things that maybe some deferred maintenance type items, tenants, if you inherited tenants, the previous landlord managed them a certain way, you may have to retrain them. So there's always going to be some stuff involved with getting the property fully stabilized, even if it's turnkey. Like, there's always that transition period. I actually just had an example of this. A newer investor just bought a duplex here. He was reaching out to me. He's like, "Oh, I'm not making any money. I might want to sell the place." I'm like, "You just bought it like a year ago." And then I said, let's take a step back, just relax. You're gonna have stuff to take care of. Generally, this is gonna happen in the first year or so until you get all the things that need taken care of, fixed, everything stabilized. And then he just reached out to me a couple weeks ago. He goes, "Oh, you're right. I'm making money now." So it's just like, it's a long game. You can't expect quick money with rental properties. It's, if you want quick money, I would do a business or something more active income. These are planting seeds for the future, realizing that there's going to be some work involved. It's not passive income by any means. It's more passive than a job or active income, but it's still work. So it's just getting people to realize that this isn't like the stock market where you just throw money in and collect the dividends. So you're getting a higher return, but it's also a little more involvement. And you can get it to the point where it is a lot more passive. You get systems in place, you get the properties in tip top shape, you get tenants that you screened in there, make the units real nice so you don't have any ongoing maintenance. You can get it to that point where it's a lot more passive, but generally at the beginning on any property, you're kind of going to go through a transition period from my experience on the investor side and seeing what with clients as well.
I think that's a great point, because I think Alex, the deacon, touched on that like the other week. He's like, a lot of times, investors, and they're like, I'm looking for $500 per door. And he's like, well, if it was that easy, I'd be buying up properties
Yes.
like every week, right? So I think a lot of times new investors, they're just looking at one number, right? Like, it's just, I want this much cash flow or return on my money. So Sarah, for you, I know you're dealing probably more with like property management side, right? So what is kind of the most unrealistic, I guess, guarantee that you think these new investors, when they come to you for property management, that they expect from your services?
I think it's a little bit of the same with the cash flow. I think Jeremy used to tell me this too. Like people will be really hyper focused on cash flow, and that's one aspect of a way you can make money from, rental properties. But I think the biggest one would be not having to spend money. It sounds dumb, but people, especially if they buy turnkey property, people think, "Oh, okay, but properties are old. If it was just flipped or renovated, there could still be underlying problems and not setting aside the money that they should have when they were underwriting the property to deal with issues. So then, they're panicking when we're telling them, "Hey, this just happened. It's going to cost this much to do it." And, they're panicking because they're like, "Oh, I bought this turnkey," or "I wasn't prepared for that." So I think the expenses of operating the property can be a wake up call for some people if they don't really think about. I've met a lot of people that don't set aside money for repairs, and I think that's crazy. But I think because people are really fixed on cash flow and stuff, they think, "Well, it won't happen," or "It's renovated, so I don't." And that's true. When you have a updated property, tend to have lower maintenance costs, but you still should be setting aside things for unexpected repairs or even future capex items.
I just want to remind everyone, there is Sarah's Instagram page. So if you want to reach out to her, if you're thinking about Detroit, go reach out to her. Taggart Team PGH page, go follow them. Jeremy, Liam's always on, but they're doing a lot of good stuff there. I think one other thing, Chris mentioned on Instagram, he said in 2021 he was aiming for the long play, but biggest surprise for him was navigating closing costs. Do you see that, Jeremy? A lot of new investors, they don't realize maybe how much the closing costs will be at the end of the day.
Oh yeah, I think I always have to correct people whenever they tell me what they're anticipating. Like, just to give an example, say you buy a multifamily property here that's 300,000. If you're using a loan to purchase that from the get-go, your closing costs are probably at least 10,000, 10 to 15,000, depending on if you're in the city limits or not. And most people are coming in assuming they're going to only have a few $1,000s for that. So you get like transfer tax here in PA is a lot of people don't realize that we have that. Just the title costs, the lender fees, especially because a lot of lenders, especially if you're working with like a broker, they're charging a point or two plus a lender fee in addition to that. That's kind of like a flat fee. You got to pay a year of insurance up front, a year of taxes up front for the escrow accounts. Generally, you have brokerage fees. So all this stuff adds up. That's another thing you want to make sure you're well capitalized, because it's not just the down payment. So setting expectations for that at the beginning as well. And you don't want newer investors to think that it's only a few grand and then they get to the point where they get it under contract, get the closing estimate from their lender, and it's triple, quadruple that. So that's definitely something that a lot of people don't think about at the beginning or just aren't aware of.
For you, Sarah, is there anything like new investors kind of try to fight you on as far as fees and costs for from the property management side?
Yeah, I actually had one. He's not even a new investor, so I'm not sure. Well, a guy that reached out to us the other day that I met at a um, event, and he has a large multifamily. It's about 40 units that they're looking to potentially purchase and have us manage in the city. And like our typical percentage would be between 8 and 10% for management fee. And basically he said we're looking at we were told other people told us 5%. And I'm like 5%, like I'm not sure who told you that, but I mean, you know, I he's like that's what I saw was standard. I'm like, no, 8 to
No, thank you.
10% is yeah, I'm like 8 to 10% is standard. And it's possible that there was somebody who told you 5% and they have all these other like they could structure it however they want, right? They might have 5% and then they might have all these other fees um that they put in place that not everything's included in their 5%. So, but just like people want to spend as little as possible, but we also are a business and providing a service and um, you know, we also are trying to make money, but at the same time help the owner make money as well.
I think that's the hard part too, right? Of being a property manager, you're kind of in the middle, right? You're trying to help the landlord, right, to make money, but you're also trying to be responsible to the tenants, right? So you're trying to please
Yeah.
two different people. I do want to remind everyone, if there is a lot of background noise, please let me know, and then I won't do this again next time. I'm testing out my ice compressor at the same time while I'm doing the live. So if it's too much noise, let me know. But let's see. Another question I got for you, Jeremy, is maybe what's the craziest thing an investor may have wanted to walk away from a deal from? Like just maybe something small that you're like, wait, it's like like the inspection, like the cost of the inspection report or something, or something on that stance.
Uh, I don't know if there's any specific things that come to mind, but what I see a lot is people being short-sighted with properties that they're buying with the intention to hold long term, and they're maybe caught up with, say, the in-place rents being below market, on a unit that's in good shape, it could be as simple as just bumping it up to market rent at the next renewal, which comes up in 5 or 6 months. So it's like they're willing to pass up on a great property over something like that, or just not thinking long term, getting too caught up in the here and now numbers of the property, which I really have to drive that home with clients, that that's how you really should be thinking about these properties that you are going to hold long term, because that is where most of the sample size is going to be, is down the road. So that, and just like inspection reports can be tricky sometimes with clients, especially on like basements in Pittsburgh. They see maybe like dampness in the basement or anything that's unique to old homes and old foundations that a lot of people freak out about, that really aren't a big deal. So trying to help clients realize what's normal and what's not normal. A lot of people can overreact to that type of stuff as well. So those are, I guess, a couple of things, that generalities, but things that I see a lot with working with clients, especially newer ones.
Sarah, I'm not sure if this individual is being serious, but they says, I'm rich and I hire Sarah to handle all my headaches so I can go to the Club Tropicana. Drinks are free. So I'm not sure if this person actually hires
Well,
you.
I don't know,
Club
but that's
Tropicana.
good because that's what we're here for. So keep hiring us so you can
That's your,
get more free drink.
yeah, that's your new business slogan. You hire us, you can go get free drinks
Yeah.
at Club
Yeah.
Tropicana. Sit back and relax.
Yeah.
Sarah, how do you build that trust with new investors? Especially, I think the common thing I see is like, doing maintenance or repairs, and how do you verify that this work is needed and your clients trusting you in getting this work done, I guess.
Yeah, I think that can be difficult because there is I think, reputation a lot for property managers. A lot of times when people come to us, if they worked with another property management company, a common thing they'll say is that they didn't communicate well and that they were a lot of hidden fees. The comments distracting. Beautiful women help feed me grapes. Um, but yeah, I think the biggest thing is, we do testimonials sometimes too, and we'll have our other clients kind of give testimonials for us so they can kind of speak on how, our performance is on their behalf of their properties. But I mean, it's hard, it's hard to trust someone when you don't know them. So we just try to communicate as much as possible to try to break that expectation or that stereotype of you know kind of slumlord type property management, not communicating and trying to nickel and dime and trying to be transparent as possible. I think transparency is how you can build trust too. Just being very transparent with your clients.
I'm not sure what Kingmaker's asking. So, do you guys a company owner? Not quite sure. Maybe Kingmaker. Thanks for tuning in, but if you can clarify what your question is. Hey, Brett's here. He's a firefighter in Wisconsin, doing cool stuff out there. Flavio's here. Joel's here. Go check out his YouTube channel. Also, please subscribe. I'll put it in the chat. Let's see. For you, Jeremy, are you seeing maybe? I'm sure there's a lot of new investors flooding the market of Pittsburgh now because it's one of the more affordable markets. So a lot of people are trying to find places where to make deals work. But do you see new investors doing more due diligence now, or just trying to jump in and make deals work?
I think there is a little bit of a sense of urgency because, like you said, there's Pittsburgh's one of the few markets left that you can get positive cash flow. I don't know how much longer we're going to have markets that you can just go on the MLS and get positive cash flow on decent properties in good areas. So I think there's a sense of urgency there of getting in before the masses do, or the market gets overpriced a little bit. But just in general, I think the more out of state investors you get, the fact that they're maybe coming to Pittsburgh because they heard it on a podcast or maybe read an article about it being a good market, they're doing a lot more due diligence on the markets themselves, I think, because a lot of people are kind of picking what market they want to be in, whether it's Pittsburgh or any of the other Midwest markets that are kind of similar price point. They're doing more due diligence on the markets themselves. I've had a lot of conversations with clients that are just exploring Pittsburgh and just trying to get a feel for the market, what's doable price point wise, rent to price ratios, what the inventory is like, etc., before they actually jump into buying. But then when they are in buying mode, decided on the market, then it seems like there's a little bit of a sense of urgency to get in quicker than sooner rather than later, basically.
Hey, Kingmaker, just to answer your question, no, we are talking more about real estate today. We have Jeremy Taggart, who is an agent, broker, investor in Pittsburgh, and Sarah Blooms, who is an investor and property manager in Detroit. So that's amazing. You're investing in stock market at 18, though. That's an awesome way to get started early, man. But today is primarily real estate and how these individuals are dealing with new investors and sometimes the questions and struggles that they have when having to deal with new investors, especially out of state new investors. Joel has a question. Not sure if you guys saw. Well, the jobs report came out today, which was, I guess, I don't know which way you want to look at it, but it was, I guess, worse, I guess, than what they were expecting, if that's the right way to put it. But the Fed did hold rates steady yesterday. So Joe's asking, what do you think about the Fed holding rates steady? Any thoughts on that? Or yeah, I guess if rates go down, if they do cut in the future, what do you expect in your markets? Jeremy, you want to go first?
I'm not surprised they held them, especially now, because I think Powell's just doing it to spite Trump because Trump's been on his back to lower them. But I get it from Trump's standpoint, but like I still think they need to get it under control. It's gotten a lot better than it has. The COVID market, that was crazy. They just need to, I think at some point they'll have to lower them, but realistically it's probably going to happen once Powell's out of there, at least lowering them a lot. So I get that they want to keep inflation under control. That's starting to get a little better, it seems, but you obviously don't want it to affect the economy as well. But the economy seems to be holding up for the most part, except for like some of the more frothy real estate markets and then bigger multifamily and office buildings and stuff. But yeah, I think that when they do significantly lower rates, it's going to kind of open the floodgates up again for real estate. And I think that the Fed knows that. So they don't want that to necessarily happen again to the same degree that it did. But yeah, once rates start to get down to like closer to 6%, I think it's going to go back to being pretty crazy competitive. There's a nice kind of period now to the point where I do see rates coming down within the next year. I'd probably be surprised if they didn't, just with the pressure Trump's putting on. And it's a good opportunity now, I think, to buy something that's a good property that you can get some concessions, get a lower price before the floodgates open again, basically. So that's kind of the vibe I'm getting here, especially with more sellers getting motivated, whether they have interest rates adjusting. I have been seeing a lot of people that maybe bought a house when rates went up that was maybe at the max of their budget, and then property taxes got reassessed, insurance went up. Now they're listing that property a couple years later, and a lot of them are actually starting to sell for lower than what they bought them for now that the taxes are higher. So I think it's kind of cleansing itself a little bit. You don't have as much of that craziness going on and people in over their heads on stuff, and people are getting a little more conservative from that standpoint. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting time period, but I'm not sure how much longer it will actually last where it stays like this.
Well, before rates do come down, and if you want to know more about the markets they're in, like I said, Sarah's in Detroit. Her Instagram page is here, so go please subscribe if you want to know more about that. And Jeremy is in Pittsburgh, so go check them out if you're thinking about considering investing in these two affordable markets. So Sarah, like we said, your market's also pretty affordable. Do you think there's
Yeah.
a lot of people sitting on the sidelines, waiting or hoping for rates to come down and the floodgates will open?
I think it's a little different. I mean, we are affordable, but we have at least so I think the city, it's a little bit different. There's more inventory, but in the metro area, there's a little bit less inventory too. So it's still pretty competitive right now. Like you have, I think stuff is a little overpriced as well because the lower inventory. We don't have as many options that they have in Pittsburgh. My inventory there is quite high compared to especially the metro area here. Like I said, the city has more, but I do think the lowering the rates will help, and I do agree with Jeremy that I think it's just become kind of political now with Trump. So hopefully we can get past that because I do think it will help. But we do still have a lot of competition right now because we don't have a ton of inventory. So you have something listed and it's already, not worth what they're listing it at, and it gets still gets bid up because there's only one in that area. So that can be a little frustrating.
Liam is saying what's up from the Instagram side. So Liam is part of Jeremy's team. So he's a regular also on this channel. But yeah, I guess my concern too is hopefully, you've been doing the work, right? Especially new investors studying your market, because I think there's going to be a lot of people that, as usual, right? If rates come down, probably means that something's happening in the economy that's not the greatest as far as indicators. And there's going to be a lot of people now that are going to be like, I'm gonna not purchase because the economy's bad, or people are losing their jobs. So I think those that are doing the work, studying their market. So that's what I'm saying. If you're thinking about investing, you know, get on a call with Sarah, get on a call with Jeremy. Get ahead of things and start understanding that market, right? So you can start kind of really getting ahead of when rates may come down and be prepared to make these offers. Because like we're talking about, right, a lot of people don't realize the whole process, right? They just think it's I present my W-2 and I present my income, and it's easy to make a purchase, right? They don't realize like the underwriters might ask for this document, or then you got to get the appraisal, the inspection report, and like you're saying, the closing costs, right? So get ahead of it, really understand what you need to bring to the table. That's why they work with these individuals like Jeremy and Sarah. Jeremy, so maybe we can kind of touch on also how things are looking right now, I guess, in Pittsburgh. Like we're saying, it's still very affordable. I'm seeing stuff like you're saying coming back on the market that were just purchased, a couple years ago, and people are probably losing money on these deals. Is that quite frequent right now you're seeing out there?
A lot more noticeable recently than previous. So I just because I keep such close tabs, especially on multifamily here, and then even kind of like some of the mid to higher price suburban, just residential properties as well. And yeah, it's happening a lot more, and I think it's people, and I saw it when people were buying stuff 2020 till now. Like when they closed, the prices they were buying them at just did not make sense unless they were putting a massive down payment. And lo and behold, those same properties are popping back up. So I think it's just, like I said, the market's kind of cleansing people that were in over their heads, weren't fit to be landlords, own rental properties. They're realizing that they're not making money, they overpaid, and now they're listing them back on the market. And luckily, Pittsburgh has held strong enough to the point where they're not really losing money, because if they were doing that in a market that went backwards, then it could have backfired even more on them. So they're managing to get bailed out by the fact that it's still a pretty steady market here, which is one of the reasons why I like it. Any Midwest market is it's slow and steady rather than ebbs and flows. But yeah, it's just the people that are good operators, they're maybe making a little bit less cash flow, but they weren't buying stuff they shouldn't have been in the first place generally. So I think that they're the ones that are kind of going to make out through this period. Just got to hold strong through it, but then will benefit once rates do eventually come back down. It'll kind of drive the appreciation again.
Shoot, sorry, I missed Joel's second part to that question. He just said, Had an investor tell me yesterday, happy as F because with updated cost seg bonus depreciation, doesn't want market flooded with buyers. He's putting offers on quadplexes as we speak. Yeah, so like Jeremy said, take action now, right, before the market does get flooded with people that have been waiting on the sidelines for rates to come down.
I'd
Um,
like to buy a nice expensive property, do cost seg bonus depreciation, get a nice tax break, and then refinance it when rates go down.
yeah, and if people don't know Jeremy's story, he is a house hacker specialist. What, eight, seven, eight?
7.
Seven, yeah. So definitely a cheat code to wealth, financial freedom. If you can lower your cost of living, make it negative, get a return on it, I mean, that is the way to do it if possible. Sarah, for you, would you say it's harder to deal with managing the tenants or new investors for the property?
Oh, definitely new investors. Yeah. Yeah, because the tenant, especially, I mean, it can still be difficult too because like we have this situation now where and it's still been months, but we inherited some well, we took over a portfolio, and the owner had bought it from the previous owner in contract with us, but uh the way the old owner self-managed and the way he managed was obviously different than the way we manage. So that can be hard with the tenants because they're expecting if they've been there for 10 years and they're used to this type of management and then they start working with us and we don't manage the same, obviously, where we have different systems and people and all of that. It can be difficult to manage that expectation, but it's still overall easier than with new investors who still from start don't know the process, and you have to kind of walk them through the process and understanding, um, you know, the cost of things and how to actually manage the property.
Yeah, I
Joel,
think
oh no, go ahead.
I I did property management too for a period of time where I was in the middle of the tenants and the owners, and owners never know how much stuff actually costs repair
Yeah,
wise. They're like, "Oh my gosh, that's so much money," but then it's just like you get used to it. I think they just have unreal expectations. The same thing there. It's just they might not know what stuff actually costs to repair, and then they are surprised when they do learn that. So it's a learning curve there as well once they actually own the property.
yeah, they had like their buddy doing the work for them for like cheap as shit, and then they're like, we're gonna do it the right way, like we had a pull permit or whatever, because we're rental, inspections and all that, and then they're like, oh, that's what it costs. So yeah, that can be a wake up call.
Yeah.
Joel says, yeah, his phone is blowing up with HELOCs for that purpose on primaries and rentals. Yeah, so there's Joel's YouTube channel. If you want to reach out to him, get some quotes, maybe see if he can help you. Go follow him there. Let's see. Chris on Instagram says he's seeing the same things in Phoenix. Phoenix 2022 August and 2025 August looking like Spider-Man pointing memes regarding homes coming back to the market and sometimes lower price, right? So I guess in his market too, he's seeing a lot of things coming back on with lower purchasing price possibly. I guess yeah. So someone mentioned you could have bought Bitcoin at $100. You missed the boat. Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's just like you could say that about real estate, right? If you bought
Yeah.
after the 2008 crash, right? You could have got homes for like $20,000, I think, in Detroit. They were saying, or that's what Jaspreet Singh was saying, right? But
Yeah.
tomorrow I'll have finally someone willing to kind of really talk about Bitcoin on my channel. I'm gonna have Derek Vickers, mobile home park investor, and Nick. He was just on Zuber's channel recently. He he sold a lot of his rentals to buy Bitcoin. So he went all in on Bitcoin. So he'll be on tomorrow morning, 11 a.m. Eastern. Uh, all right. Let's see. What? Do you have a go-to script, Jeremy, when talking to new investors when they reach out to you, as far as kind of bullet points to hit, how to help them ease into the market? Is there kind of things you always touch on?
Yeah, I always give expectations on pricing in the market, competition, what they can expect as far as how often they're going to see good deals, like how many per week are popping up. Just trying to give a general overview of the general state of the market, what's doable here, just so they're aware, because we don't want people having unrealistic expectations and then having the expectations not met once they jump into it. So just kind of setting things up there so that they are on the same page as far as what's realistic or not realistic. That's probably the biggest thing. And then just giving them answering any questions they have. But I'd say that's the biggest thing, is just the general specifics of the market here, because it's just knowledge that I know off the top of my head that I can give them a very short period of time that would take them a very long time to accumulate that and figure it out, just so kind of a general summary of everything basically.
Yeah, so Harrison, Trade Better 99 is tuning in. Just wanted to say hi, have a great weekend. But Harrison is working with Jeremy. So Harrison is in Virginia. He does have a rental in Ohio, but he's pivoting to the Pittsburgh market. I know he's put in some offers. Unfortunately, no counters yet. But yeah, there's a good group of people working with Jeremy. So if you want to know more information, reach out to me, reach out to Jeremy. But doing a lot of cool stuff there. Sarah, has there been any maybe client that you had to fire from the man or landlord position that weren't aligned with your vision or your goals, I guess, or how you manage properties?
Yeah, there was one before I started. And that kind of, we're a smaller growing company. So I think that kind of was a little bit of a wake up call as like, hey, we need to make sure we're really, as much as like as they're interviewing us, like we're interviewing them as well to make sure that they're a good fit. Um, then that we actually want to manage their portfolio. But again, to the whole point of like making sure expectations are set. But there was a client. It ended up, I think, ultimately we weren't aligned on a lot of things because expectations weren't clear from the beginning. And I think that was a big learning lesson. And because of that, really just making sure that not assuming, never assuming, and making sure that everybody, even if you are a long-term investor, that they understand the expectations of what we expect from them, and if and we understand what they expect of us as well, that we're aligned. So yeah, it has happened, but we're trying really hard to, you know, put ourselves in good position where from the start we're on the same page, and so that doesn't have to happen.
Joel is saying he sees Instagram links for both of you, but no YouTube links. So Sarah, do you have any YouTube links? YouTube channel yet?
No,
Not
I
yet.
stink at social media. I need to get better at it, but no.
I know Jeremy does, but I do not have his. But I do have. Let's see if I can find it. I know I have Jeremy's. I believe his Bigger Pockets episode. I have to look for it. I'll find it. Or if Jeremy has it, he might have it on hand. He can share it to me. But I have it somewhere here. If not, I'll post Jeremy's episode on Bigger Pockets. Let's see who's tuning in. Chris Webb is here from Virginia, making yes bulletproof. So this is perfect, right? So this is Detroit and Pittsburgh, where a lot of people might say you need bulletproof vest to invest, and we'll dig into that on one of the comments on one of the reels that I had or shorts I had on YouTube. Jim is here, grumpy contractor. Oh, there's someone. I will leave that question out, but it's for Jeremy. So let's see. We can dig into this question. Hold on. It was a comment posted on a short that I put on YouTube. It was for the Detroit market. So let's see. Oh shoot! Oh, here it is. It says, "I've been to Detroit a couple of times recently. It is literally the worst, most dilapidated area I can think of in the Midwest. Horrible
Jeez.
environment, and I'm from the hood, so I would know." So Sarah, do you have any pushback for that?
Yeah, I think it's very dramatic, but I think it's ignorant, honestly, because every city has, you know, lower income areas, higher income areas, higher crime areas, lower crime areas. So, and I would say too, like we've talked about a lot from how where Detroit was at, 10, 20 years ago to where it's at now, it's a very different place. But you're always going to have those locations. That's a very general statement to make, I think, about any area. I know a lot of really nice neighborhoods in the city of Detroit. I know people that live in the city of Detroit. So, I mean, I think that's a not a good outlook to have because you are missing out on opportunities if you do make generalized statements like that about locations because there are great spots to live and invest in the city. You just might have to do your research a little bit more and because it could be a little bit more uh pocket based areas like we talked about.
Yeah, I saw that comment. And I was like, oh man,
Yeah, it's
I need
funny.
Sarah to come back on.
It sounded
Uh,
like there was some personal anger there or something, like,
A little
but
bit, yeah.
yeah, yeah.
uh, so Jeremy, I do have a question though, because you mentioned it. You said Midwest for Pittsburgh. So is Pittsburgh considered Midwest or like Northeast?
I consider it more Midwest, honestly.
Same.
It falls in the Northeast, technically, being Pennsylvania, but Western PA and Eastern PA are almost there's such a big gap of nothingness in between that separates it enough to the point where the cities aren't even really connected. It's more we're actually closer to Ohio than Philly, so it's like we fall in more of that as far as general feel of the city, price points, all of that, cash flow, etc. So it's but I do like it because it is the closest Midwest city to the coast, which brings benefits that you might not have as you get farther inland, basically. So that's, but for all intents and purposes, I'd say Midwest.
I believe Joel might want to know about these areas. He says Bloomfield Hills, Rochester Hills, Birmingham, and Troy.
Yeah, those are all A class areas for sure in the Metro Detroit area. Yeah. Expensive homes there for sure.
Is Detroit like Pittsburgh, where you have neighborhoods where there you have sub 100, but then you have neighborhoods that have like six, seven, $800,000 houses on the norm?
That's kind of what I was talking about earlier with like Indian Village and you'll have kind of like that pocket. But yeah, it's pretty I think it's a pretty similar market in that respect. It's just bigger.
Yeah.
Chris Webb says, from my perspective, Pittsburgh is looking attractive due to the leadership. Or where they come due to the leadership in the state. They're looking to improve the business community. I am not sure about Detroit. I would defer to the panel. But is that the kind of vibe you're getting, Jeremy? I know Liam was on the other week. Alex kind of touched on, the AI infrastructure they're looking at building in the Pittsburgh area. But are you kind of seeing like a new vibe or kind of people, the whole business community, kind of looking forward, I guess?
Yeah. And I think it's even to the point where like PA's always been more represented, I think, by the eastern side of the state as far as like governor and all that. But it seems like recently they're coming around more to it, like being business friendly than maybe previously, more similar to kind of like Ohio and stuff, that they want to take advantage of this AI thing specifically with the opportunity that Pittsburgh's position with Carnegie Mellon and the natural gas abundance here that is has a lot of potential. It's like I think they realize that and they don't want to fumble the bag that they have a great opportunity to bring a lot of investment into Western PA or just PA in general. So they're coming around to it where they otherwise might have been a little less gung ho on it. It seems so. Yeah, definitely recently for sure.
Yeah, I think that's the vibe. But like I said, I don't know if you saw that episode, but Alex, he really puts things in perspective, kind of, right? So Liam was talking about like how much money they're talking about. I think 90 billion. You know, the AI infrastructure and whatnot is in the news, and Alex is sitting there like, nah, until I see it, I don't believe it. I'm not gonna change what I'm doing now, right? He's kind of like, if it happens, it happens, but it's not gonna change my kind of long term vision, right? In a sense, so it's always good to get that, like I said, that kind of old grizzly veterans perspective of how to maybe stay level headed, right? So a lot of people, new
Yeah.
investors, might be like, "Oh, I'm gonna go to Pittsburgh now because of all these policies they're talking," and that's why it's good to have boots in the ground like Jeremy, folks who can kind of put things in perspective and hey, we're still doing the same things. You know, we're still looking at these areas, you know, these multifamily and whatnot, and kind of help navigate the waters for that. Sarah, so maybe what has been, did you do any property management out in Pittsburgh also, Sarah, or just when you got to Detroit?
Yeah, I did property management in Pittsburgh.
Same clientele, you would say, or kind of do you see any differences between who you're working with in the two different
I
markets?
think we had a larger portfolio we managed. I mean, it was right now we're about 300 units, and like so we're still a smaller growing company, but in Pittsburgh we were managing 1200 and growing units. So I think though the clientele there was more experienced, I'd say, and they had usually it wasn't one property they would bring to us. It would be, more of a larger quantity of properties they would bring, or maybe, you know, 5 units or something, and they had already been working with someone else. They didn't like what they were receiving, and they came to us, so they did have experience. I think that's helpful too, honestly, when somebody, has already worked with another property management company, and they can kinda see too what works for them, what doesn't work for them, and they can kinda get some expectations, then they can come to us. I think it can be both ways potentially, but, yeah, usually when I was managing those clients in Pittsburgh, it was a little bit more experienced investors, and they kinda understood cost a little bit more. They were a little bit more hands off because they had more experience, so they were a little bit more understanding of things.
Chris Webb does say yes. People need to remember AI takes 7 times more energy. The AI firms are first starting to develop power sources, and they might be close to the data centers. So yeah, that is definitely something of concern. So like Harrison, who chimed in earlier, he's in Virginia, and there's a lot of data centers, I believe, in some of the areas in Virginia, and that is the concern. You know, there's a lot of people that are like NIMBYism, right? Not in my backyard. They don't want these things in their backyards for pollution reasons and whatnot. So that is always kind of the dilemma, right? Are you gonna? Yes, it can bring this money to the area and jobs, but at the same time, some areas may not want it, right? And people are going to be moving from those locations because of the pollution and whatnot. So um, Chris says, I am curious about Sarah's experience in terms of clients. For the rentals, are they coming from all different occupation, or is there a trend that can be ID'd?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think potentially there could be a trend. I would say a lot of people in, the medical field that do have, people I think are afraid of the stock market now, and so they have a lot of cash and they're not sure where to put it. So they find out about real estate and they want to invest. So even if that's in syndication, even more passively, or they want to buy properties and they aren't sure where to start. So I would say that could potentially be a good trend. We do see a lot of doctors, mostly doctors, that surgeons that are looking to invest in real estate.
Chris also says, yes, they are making a new site in Lexington, which is about 40 minutes from me and 1.5 hours from Richmond. Yes, he's talking about the data centers.
Yeah.
Let's see. Jeremy, is there any maybe something that you see new investors should actually be more concerned about or freaked out about that they kind of overlook?
I think the quality of the buildings and the quality of the area. A lot of people are getting better with this, but they get hung up on the cash flow. specifically from day one, to the point where I try to emphasize to people that if you're out of state relying on third party property management, B class areas are probably your best bet if you want something more or less passive, especially if you're buying it for the long haul, because they get enticed by the spreadsheet numbers on maybe a dumpy building in a C class area, thinking that it's going to pan out. Whereas once they buy it, they realize that it's not passive because it's a lot more management intensive. They have a lot more repairs that need done on the building. You have more turnover with tenants. So just those kind of things that, especially now that it seems like the gap between the cash flow in the C areas and the B areas isn't as big as it used to be. I think more quality areas tends to work out better for the out of state clients that are relying on third party property management. The experience tends to go better. So that's something that I think we see a lot, that people can kind of get burned by a bit, or just realize that they're not apples to apples. It's different on the management side of things and ongoing maintenance on those properties.
For either one of you, is there like a phrase or maybe a question or comment that a new investor brings to you that you know that they've been watching too much YouTube? Like, you know, they've been watching too many YouTube videos and they bring this kind of catchphrase or something that they're looking for. Something that sticks out to you guys? Now, you kind of said cash flow, right, Jeremy? Everyone's kind of stuck on cash flow in a sense, right?
It's
Yeah.
getting better, but still, yeah, I would say a little bit too much. I mean, honestly, for me myself, I'd rather have a break even property, say side by side, newer B area, than a C class that cash flows a little bit more. So just knowing the long term upside of the B area, nice property. So it's hard to tell that to newer clients though, because they haven't seen the effect of owning long term in good areas and have the patience to be able to see it play out. It's one thing to say it, but when you've actually experienced it yourself, it's a different perspective and mindset on it. So it's tough to drive that home sometimes, I guess.
So we kind of touched on it last time Sarah was on too. You know, Pittsburgh and the Detroit market. You know, where would she invest if she had the capital right now? But Sarah, what are you doing right now? Are you looking to make more moves out there? Are you kind of sitting on your portfolio to stabilize? I know you had some plumbing issues the last time we talked, right? So what are you
Yeah.
looking to do right now?
Yeah, I have right now I have my units in Pittsburgh, and uh Jeremy's team was helping me lease the one unit that I have, and I have another unit that just came vacant yesterday that I'm have to put a little bit money into. It's a really big unit actually. That the tenant lived there for like 10 years. So he lived there forever. Actually, his dad bought the place and he sold it and he stayed there. So that needs a little bit of work. But here, I am looking for my next house hack here. That's kind of going to be my plan, is to house hack at least for another year. And then I've really been getting into more commercial, as in commercial multifamily. So looking for, something larger, 5 or up. So I think that's gonna be kind of my plan in the future. But for now, I really do like the house hacking. I don't know if I'll ever beat Jeremy's number. I really wanted to, but I don't know if I can get 8. There'll only be 3, so
Yeah, I mean, that's amazing
it's
that
a
he did
long
that.
time.
Yeah, and Liam was giving you credit, Jeremy, but he also said, you know, you found the perfect match for yourself that was on board with you. He doesn't. Liam says he doesn't know if his spouse will be down for that. So definitely, there's a lot of negotiating going on there. Flavio says, Jeremy, good point. Never thought that way. Most people are focused on high cash flow, right? So I think like Jeremy said, especially new investors, right? That's that number that they're looking at, right? Oh, I need this amount of cash flow. I want this amount of cash flow, and they're not really looking at the long term vision. And I think that's what kind of Dion touches on also a little bit sometimes. Dion Financial Talk. If you don't know, his book just came out, so go check it out on Amazon. But he talks about that too, right? It's not necessary that he would buy a deal that doesn't cash flow, but he's looking at it as a vision. Like maybe today it's not cash flowing because maybe I'm inheriting tenants that are paying under market rent, but I'm seeing where the market rent's at. I'm seeing what area it is. So maybe in 2 3 years, when I get everything stabilized, then it's going to be cash flowing, right? So definitely, it also depends where you're at in your journey, and that's kind of the duplex I just closed on is kind of along those lines where I'm inheriting two tenants which are under market rent, but I'm going to probably increase their rent over time if they do want to stay, get the single family home kind of fixed up a little bit, and once everything is to market rents, then it's going to be cash flowing very well, right? So that's kind of the vision, especially as a new investor. Maybe you don't want to take that maybe negative or alligator as we call it deal, but as you start getting properties under your belt, it makes it a lot easier to kind of navigate those situations.
Yeah, that's
Uh,
how it was the first property Jeremy helped me buy. Um, and he knows a little bit about like what the rents were at, but they were extremely under market. The one tenant who was a little interesting, he was paying $200 for a two bed with a two-car garage, and which is insane. And so once I, and I was living there because I was house hacking, so all I had to do was, increase their rents. That helped a lot. But when I got the guy upstairs increased his rent, but when I moved in and I did the value add and I renovated it while I lived there, then it was immediate. Now it's cash flowing like $800. So it's like it's a really good property. But I had to, like, to your point, I had to put a little bit of work in. Not everyone's willing to do. I think that's part of the problem too, is everyone wants turnkey and it's harder to find. If you want turnkey, you're gonna pay more. But if you're willing to put in a little bit upfront, even if you're not doing the work, but you're paying and you're just waiting and you're adding value, I think it's gonna be a lot easier.
Joel says Jeremy equals legend. Yes, I have to agree. A lot of people in our community do like working with Jeremy and his team. Like Liam, like I said, Liam is also on this channel, and Jeremy is having a lot of life events going on, and he is still head of the team, but Liam is taking on more responsibilities and whatnot. So they have a good thing going there. And like I said, there's a lot of people in our community that are working with them and enjoy working with them and like the boots on the ground that we are building there with Omar, Greg Bailing, like I said, Alex Deacon. Liam was trying to get. I don't know if you knew who he was talking about, Jeremy, but Liam said he was gonna. There was an inspector possibly that he thinks would be a good fit to get on the channel, but he was going to see if he could get someone else on the channel, kind of boots on the ground, to kind of discuss the Pittsburgh area. Yes, this Kustofi 466 must have a Lambo, Ferraris. He wants to know if Sarah wants to go on a ride with her hair blowing in the wind. But you must be doing well out there. I'm not sure what you invest in.
So you got to take him up on the offer to go on the Lambo.
Yeah, it depends what kind. I do. My favorite is the Lamborghini Urus,
Oh,
but
I want
I
one
don't
of
think.
those so bad, but
Oh,
I
they're
don't.
so nice. Yeah.
I don't think it would make sense here.
No, no.
It's not really
I've
a
seen a couple
Lamborghini
here.
Urus. Oh, really?
Yeah, I saw one the other day, but I've seen two of them here. In like the nicer areas, like the
Yeah.
areas that Joel was mentioning, like Birmingham's a really nice area. I've seen one there.
Do you know this individual that Liam threw in the chat? Tony Lupanasi? Is that how you say it?
Yeah,
The
we use
inspector?
him for a lot of inspections.
All right,
He's
cool.
good.
So yeah, so Liam sounds like he'll be a good fit. Maybe help people navigate their inspection reports, and we've talked about it quite a bit. And I think Sarah even agrees. It's some of the same things with Detroit. There's just certain things that new investors have to kind of navigate. Like the basements. The kind of moist or damp basements in Pittsburgh. Of course, looking out for knob and tube wiring and whatnot, but definitely getting an inspector on here that can kind of break things down and kind of ease investors' minds would probably be super helpful.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, this was a good episode. I'm always thankful that you guys are willing to hop on. Hopefully, it's attracting new clients for you folks and getting your guys' names out there. Anything else you guys want to share before we wrap things up? Anything else you're working on? Jeremy, I didn't give you a chance to really say maybe what's your next year, 2 years investing or on the business side you're working on maybe.
Continue to do the agent side of things with investors here. So that's always going to be a thing. And then haven't really been as aggressive on the investor side myself, but if there's a good deal on a very nice property in a great area, I'll probably end up buying it if I come across it, and then I'll maybe sell some of the ones I previously bought that are cheaper, maybe more C-class areas, kind of just prune the portfolio, so to speak. So that's probably, as far as investing goes, if I'm going to actively invest in more properties, it would look something like that, to the point where I'm still keeping the same number of units, but just improving the quality of them. And then keeping our eyes out too. We're looking to potentially buy a primary home, just single family here within the next few years. So maybe take advantage of this nice market opportunity we have right now to snag one of those. And then prior to the market opening back up, if they do lower interest rates, definitely focused on that as well. Or if we can find some land that we can build on. So shifting more a little bit towards that on the buying side, I guess.
Flavio, not paying attention again. He's asking what that noise is. Is it a tsunami alarm? No, it's probably, I said I am using the ice compression therapy on my shoulder right now. I did have surgery for my rotator cuff on Monday, so I'll probably be out another 3 to 5 months. But they said I'm supposed to use it twice a day for 80 minutes. So I figure I might as well try to kill two birds with one stone and get one session out while I'm doing the live. Like I said, Sarah also was recently on Coach Carson's YouTube podcast, and Jeremy mentioned something about kind of pruning the trees of the portfolio and whatnot. I know Coach Carson is big on that. So,
Yeah.
Sarah, maybe quickly touch on Coach Carson and your experience with him.
Yeah, he's awesome. I'm in his RPM group, Rental Property Mastery. It's a mastermind group that's virtual, and he's always doing new programs within the group, and it's a super hands-on group. And when I say that, I mean we have direct access to him, so we can set up one-on-ones with Coach Carson. If there's a deal I'm looking at, and I'm want to analyze it with him, I can set up a call. We can work through it together. There's a lot of great resources of people all across the country investing in their own areas, investing in other areas. So it's just a great place to connect with other investors. But I've just always liked his motto of, small and mighty investor, just reminding you that each of our journeys in real estate investment is, unique to ourselves, and we don't have to be a Grant Cardone, we don't have to be a Brandon Turner. We can, whatever our number is for us, if we want to own all the Lambos, then we can. How many properties is it going to take for us to own all the Lambos? So kind of looking at it that way and what your goal is, um, at the end of the day.
Said the noise is Lambo wind through Sarah's hair bun with Reverend Lambo.
I
Uh,
wish.
yeah, this was a great episode. Like I said, reach out to Sarah and Jeremy if you want to know more about their markets. Casey is tuning in, and it reminds me, yes, the one rental at a time tickets are on sale for the Vegas event in February 2026. So go check it out. I know Casey bought his tickets already. Oh, Jeremy is here. What's up with the Vegas host? Jeremy is here. What's up with the Vegas wholesale home? Is he?
Vegas wholesale home?
Casey, I'm not sure what you're talking about. If you can clarify before we wrap things up. What's up with the Vegas wholesale home? I think you might be thinking about Jeremy. No. Does Zuber talk to? Is his name Jeremy Levin? I don't know. But yeah, thanks everyone for tuning in. Go get your ORAT tickets for next year in Vegas. Hopefully see all of you there. We'll get Sarah and Jeremy back on again. But have a great weekend, everyone. I'll be back here tomorrow, 11 a.m. live with Nick talking about Bitcoin and Derek Vickers, mobile home park investor. All right. Thanks, everyone.
Awesome.